tease is not as effective as a taste. There will be buyer's remorse, like if the person doesn't get the outcome, much more so than if they...
That's a question every business owner should ask in their business right now. What do they have like, now that...
With all areas, it's like, how can I make everybody I'm doing business with want to do business with me even more? Like, how can I make my vendors, the people I buy from, put me at the top of the list if like they have a limited supply and they only have X number, right? Yeah. I want to be one of those. Like my affiliates, like, how do I make it so that like they choose to promote me over other people? My customers, like, if they could buy through 10 different links, someone else's product, choose me, right? Like, and I don't know, like life has always worked better that way. Right. Like, and, so I think we talked about last time, like, I would imagine that we did, like, because I try and talk about it all the time, like the idea of designing your business to make your flaws irrelevant. Right.
Yep.
The idea that part of a good business design is to take wherever you're weak and make it so that it doesn't matter in your business. So your business thrives based on who you are today, not some fictional version of yourself. And this is just an extension of that. So that like step one is design a business so that your flaws are irrelevant. Step two is design your business so that everybody sees a win, so that you're not the only person pushing this up the mountain, right? Like, yep. And for me, that has always been consistent. Like I have always tried to make it so that like when I win, everyone else wins. Because one, it's not fun to win by yourself. There's no one to celebrate with. But two, like we are in an interconnected world. And if you're the only person that really wants to see you win, odds are is that you won't. And so I think that, it all kind of like comes together. And obviously, and maybe it's not obvious, but like, you can't build the company ethos that way if you're doing bad shit. Like you can't if you screw over customers and your employees know that, then what prevents your employees screwing you over? Like
exactly.
Right. Like, so, we have to walk the talk, so to speak, I guess. And so if you're like a fake guru, anyone you hire who's seeing these smoke and mirrors, like, long-term, you can't win that way. Short-term, you can win that way. But long-term, you're not going to have people break their backs to try and get you more money. Like, that's just not going to, and at some point, people are going to feel bad about sending people to you. And like, it implodes. And that's why very few people play the long game. And that's why, there are very few gurus that have been around like online for 20 years, right? Because like, they generally don't last because most people don't want to see them win. Yeah. They cash out and like, it's for the same reason that I never had a phone room or I never outsourced to a phone room. Because everyone that outsourced to a phone room, and this is like 10 years ago, got ridiculously bad press, like, tons of bad write-ups, like, in the search engines and stuff, because people are generally weak and they can be railroaded into things much easier on the phone than they can be like looking at a web page. And they will hold you to account later on. Like there will be buyer's remorse, like if the person doesn't get the outcome, much more so than if they made the decision on their own. Right. And so like I've just purposely tried to always kind of avoid those things because then you start getting people who are wishing for your demise, not your success. Yeah. Right. And I've had friends who've had to deal with that, and that's not fun. But take back control of this podcast because I feel I've taken it too many tangents.
But what's crazy is you went off on so many different interesting tangents, but then you tied it all back to the original question, which
that's the ADD mind.
That's incredible. I went down the web with you, and then we ended up back to exactly where I wanted to be. So I think you should navigate this podcast because you're doing a great job at it. I just have one final question. To kind of wrap it up. If you've been around, you've seen a lot of different marketing tactics. Yeah. I think one of the things you're seeing right now are a lot of brands in the last few years who have been really, really spoiled with Facebook ads and whatnot, just being able to put $1 in, get $5 back at the time. And now, they're crying now with iOS changes and things got harder. The platforms are changing. So I guess it's a two-part question. One is, what's your message to the business owners listening to this right now and being like, and being like, stop whining? Or is it just, yeah, whine, legit reason to whine? And then number two is, if you had to give advice to a business that's building their business right now and they could not use these platforms, what would be like the top 3 ways you would tell them go out and you could still build a business, without those things?
Well, the first thing I would say is that like about the people that are complaining, it's not as easy as it once was on Facebook. That's for sure. Right. Like, but what I would say is one that, so a couple things. One, that Google still has all the data that they had before, and they have more than Facebook, and they've always had more than Facebook.
But that's going away too, right? We're moving towards a cookieless web regardless.
No, it's not going away. No, that's not going away. Like, I mean, the kind of targeting you can do on YouTube is insane.
Yeah.
Right. Like, not only what someone's doing on YouTube, but what they do, period. Right. Like, I mean, you could target people, like I could target people that go to specific websites, right? Like that's, so I think that, like you shouldn't be banging your head up against the wall to try and make Facebook work when there's always a platform that is easiest. And it was Facebook at one point. It's not anymore. It's YouTube. And so your money should be on YouTube. And look, I have no love for Google and I have no love for Facebook. So it's not like it pains me to say that. You're platform agnostic. Yeah. Well, I dislike them, but I'm not even agnostic, but like that's the first thing I would say. I would also say though that there are plenty of people who are crushing it on Facebook, right? Like there were two tactics specific that. So I did a Steal Our Winners like relatively recently with Jordan Menard, where he talks about these 3 magic numbers. That is the % that stop the scroll, the % that engage in the ad in any way, and the % that click through.
Yeah, thumbs up.
And that like people have told me is getting them great results, like when you can get the numbers right. Yeah. And one of the things that makes the numbers right, like at least for Donnie, he was telling me yesterday, like with Performance Golf, because they're crushing it, is a different Steal Our Winner that I thought was like game changing. I don't know that most people else did. I try and get people to see it, but I don't know if I'm effective in it. And that one came from Walter Birch, Tease versus Taste, because when he explained that to me, what that was all about and what that's about is that like he's a big lead gen person. He needed to figure out lead gen on YouTube. And, in YouTube, you can target like the right person always, but the right person, it might not be the right time. And most ads are complete interruption on YouTube because they click the thumbnail to go somewhere and now you pop up. And so the idea is what gets someone in the mood, the right person in the mood. And a tease is not as effective as a taste. Right. And, in other words, like in this video, I'm going to share 3 ways to boost your conversion. That's a tease, right? As opposed to the first way to boost conversion is this. I have another 2, I'm going to tell you about blah, blah, blah. My name is Richard. Right. And so start with the taste and so Donnie's been playing around a lot with that, and it's made a huge difference, like cut to meat right away and then back off. And I think like the reason I was blown away by that was that and I said it in that Steal Our Winners. And when I present on it, I talk about it. Like, I don't see this as just a YouTube strategy. I see this.
I was just going to say that's a copy strategy. That's a Facebook strategy. That's an everything strategy.
It's the ante to now get someone's attention. Yeah. Like you used to be able to make a promise to get people's attention. A promise is not good enough anymore because people's attention is too scarce. I mean, last night in conversation with my friends, I was like saying, like, up until like 8 months ago, I answered every single text I got before I went to bed.
Yeah.
Always. It was the one channel that like I was like, I had like nothing, no other channel do I manage. Like, it's a shit show in my email box and everywhere else. But even now with text, like I get too many and I'm not positive at the end of the day that I got back to everybody.
Yeah.
And there's more things requiring my attention. And so like when I come across an ad or I come across a page on the web, like I still have that attention scarcity. And so it's got to like overcome that quickly or I'm not interested. And so that is also like, if you're not aware of what works, you're always going to be struggling. And so like those things are just very real, right? So that's the first thing.
Now you give up all the platforms.
Yeah.
How do you?
So I wrote in the attention. So, the first 3 reports I wrote were the manifesto series, the first one, the missing chapter, the final chapter. Then I wrote these 2 about attention. And the first one was just like, the attention age doctrine 1 was like, hey, this is a problem. And I didn't really go too much into solutions. Some theories, but not solutions. And so in the attention age doctrine 2 was much more about the solutions, because I had a much better idea now of the problem and the challenges and stuff like that. And there was a section of the attention age doctrine 2, and there was even a call out, on this, because one of the things I said, one of the implications of attention of Web 2, because social media was really the move from Web 1 to Web 2. So Web 1 was complete broadcast. People couldn't communicate back. Web 2 now being this more interactive, and the rise of social media and everything. And so one of the implications of social media was that prospects now were publishers. Right? They could create a YouTube, video. They could post to Facebook. They could tweet. They could, now they can post pictures on Instagram, et cetera. So one of the call outs was that prospects are no longer just targets. They're your single best marketing channel. And one of the reasons that my reports went viral, right, was that prospects were sharing it with other prospects, because I didn't have 1 million customers. Yep. Right. So it wasn't customer word of mouth. It was prospect word of mouth. And that's a function of counterintuitive value, right? Like telling people something they haven't heard before that makes sense to them, because then they want to share it with their friends, right? Like people, like the secret to getting pass along, right, is to recognize, there is no secret, is to recognize that people don't pass around your stuff because they like you. It has nothing to really do with you. They pass along your stuff because they love their friends, and what you gave them is valuable enough to share. That's, or
so that they look good passing on that information too.
Yeah, exactly. And so, I think so I'll tell you this parallel kind of story in my mind, but it might not be. And let me kind of see if I can actually, is this podcast also video?
Yep.
Okay. So then it's worth me seeing if I can do this really quick. So we're launching this new platform, right? And the new platform is pretty much up and running now. And, but and my team did most of it. I was kind of not involved in it, and I was very impressed with what they came up with. But there's always a but. But the part that I was not impressed by was the intake. So let me step back here for a second. So when it comes to our platform and Steal Our Winners, and what me as a business owner and a marketer, right, what I want to do is I want to have an insanely great offer to get people to come to the website, so that it's easy to get people to come to the website. And then I want an insanely great offer that turns visitors into customers.